So what is an image with the soul?
That is when you've put prana onto the image. You see, soul represents Pingala,
So
right?
possessed. Sounds like a possessed.
SOL, the sun. So the prana comes out of the sun. So here's an interesting concept. Crystallization happens because of the sun of matter. So like sugar that we need for our bodies is all coming out of the sun. And plants are like alchemists. The plants take they alchemize the light into crystals, and they say, sugar, drug of choice, keeps me alive. And so now we all need to eat the sugar, which is actually crystallized sunlight. So the soul brings the crystallization, and without that sugar from the crystallized sunlight, we wouldn't have molecules, right? Because the molecules are built according to the elements of salts and metals and various different elements that are bound together by the activities of metabolism, which is sugar in action, which is the prana of the sun. So when you add soul to something, it becomes physical. No? Isn't that something ironic in that? It's almost a upside down, back to front, inside out. Because we think of the soul as being somewhere else, don't we? Like maybe the soul is right here. Maybe we're not disconnected to the soul. Maybe we're living in the soul. And that this soul, SOL.
Almost like it's the ether in a way, too. It could be considered like just a field around us all at all times, an animating field.
Yeah, exactly. And the sun keeps that field powered. And so you add soul to it and it becomes objective. Where subjective is like you got to be a lunatic to go full subjective, right? So now we're talking about a different frequency of light. So the soul is the objectivizing electrical principles, electricity streaming out of the sun. And that electrical thing creates like the electrical reactions, which cause molecules to bind. But then we've got like this other kind of light, which is like, we could call it magnetism or gravity. I don't know what to call it, but it comes out of the moon. It comes from the moon. It's somehow related to the moon. And funnily enough, is it drops the temperature. So in the moonlight, the temperature is lower than outside of the moonlight, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that a weird phenomenon? And that's actually testable. With like the correct equipment. It's not just somebody made it up. People have tested this, and like with equipment, and it's a very minute difference, but the moonlight cools you down. So anything that heats you up produces the matter. Anything that cools you down takes you away from the matter. So you become more subjective and more like into your subconscious by the lunar principle. But in the solar principle, you become more rational, right? Mm-hmm. So what is a ration? It's a ray, ion bound to the T of the ion of Ra. Bring it all together when we say rationala. I don't know,
Yeah.
That's basically what it seems to be happening. And so this T seems to be the fundamental crux upon which this ion is crucified so that we can experience the ray of life.
Dude, keep the freestyle going, man. That was fire. I was going to jump in.
Dude, if I start rapping, I sound like I come from the 80s.
Oh yeah, me too. I'm like a TV dad from the 80s every time I try and make rap words. Yeah.
People say to me, dude, you're in the wrong decade.
Yeah, but it doesn't stop me from doing it anyway. I don't care.
You could have been big in 1984.
Oh yeah, like in the marketing department for commercials, this rap is really popular. Like I'd be like one of those dudes on the commercials. But yeah.
Yeah, but that's a really interesting perspective of the soulless, in an image. We're back to the image, aren't we? Right? Like the image with the soul in it becomes, so the image is magic, right? Like magic image. So like the moment you put the sun's power, sugar, energy into that, it becomes active. So like we're talking
100%. And that's why, I mean, even a lot of, traditional cultures that are close to nature don't like their pictures taken because they believe it takes a part of their soul. And that could be very real. Now, we, again, back circle. I know we've talked, guys, I know we've been talking in circles, and, Bush Whisper and Indy's been out here all day. So we might cover ground that's already been covered. But yeah, I mean, that could be a superstition. Oh, they're just superstitious. But the same thing with, again, just what PK was kind of mentioning a little bit earlier was like words speaking something. Again, we've went over this before, but speaking it can kind of put limits on a thing, right? Yeah, so how do you explain hey guys, what's a good word for the Almighty God? It's like whatever word you're gonna use, you're gonna just automatically put some sort of limits on it, but not real limits, but your perceived limits. So yeah, words, all that is a bit of a trap of itself. But I mean, that's how we communicate now, and we're very disconnected now. So that's how we communicate mostly. Yeah.
So the one question was like, Wildhammer was asking, is the Earth flat? That's like a whole round table panel discussion in itself. Like, just exactly what is it flat? Is it concave? Is it hollow? Is it a ball? Is it an emanation of the consciousness field that can become flat or hollow or a ball, depending on how you allow the consciousness to move through your focusing antennae that produce this reality that seems to be so substantial and such solid, but essentially it can be whatever the hell we all agree it to be.
Yeah,
it's a consensus.
And to the guy, Wild Dharma, yeah, I can tell you, I'm not moving right now. And I can tell you the luminaries above my head are moving above my head pretty consistently. That's my opinion. So I ain't spinning, and I ain't dizzy, and I ain't being whirled, WHIRLED. You could be. I'm just sharing what I'm doing. I'm not moving, and I'm not big into balls. I know a lot of people are into spinning balls, but not me. Enjoy balls.
Is reality being rendered like a computer game renders image? And
now, that's interesting. Now, that's an interesting concept. I'm totally into with the codes and all that, it being, and then is it just use the term simulation. I know like it's meaning and the more it gets said, but that's a very real thing. I mean, I know for me, the Mandela effect, again, just to use that term, things have changed in a lot of writings and things. So this realm might have got a refresh, right? So then even when you're a researcher, like a lot of us, and you go, oh man, look at this book from the 1800s. It's like, well, you got to think, was there some sort of refresh in the code back then as well? I suspect 2012, there was a bit of a Mandela effect. This is just me. And yeah, so that's an interesting thing. The simulation, this being a simulation, is very it's on the table, in my opinion. It's not a non-issue. But that's just, I'm only speaking for myself, guys. I represent no groups, and no one represents me. So
except you.
I'm a Ronin. The Ronin is not just some pretty word that I use.
How can we explain how water swirls one way in the toilet in the northern hemisphere and the other way in the southern hemisphere? Does it mean if there's a flat Earth that they're on two different sides of the coin?
Well, so if you go to Ecuador, and this is not answering your question. I'm not evading your question either. If you go to Ecuador, there's a big scam. This guy goes, you stand there, you go, I'm on the equator as a tourist. This guy comes with a bowl of water, steps over here and goes, look, I'm on the south. And he drops water and it spins. Then he goes over 20 feet over here and goes, look, I'm in the north, and it spins the other way. It's because he pours the water in it a certain way. So it's like one of those tourist scams.
Oh, damn. I never seen anybody do it right on the equator like that.
Yeah, it's a touristy. It's in Ecuador. It's like one of those goofy Times Square scam things. That doesn't answer your question. I was just anecdotal.
And I mentioned this before that when we looked it up, it said the Coriolis effect is too, like in a toilet or something, too small for it to be seen. It has to be seen in a larger. At least that's what the scientists say. So you
Very
wouldn't even be able to-
convenient. Huh?
It's pretty significant to me. If there's ever like, maybe it goes the other way sometimes, then it would be like, all right, maybe this is nothing.
That's a very interesting idea. But then the flat Earth idea could be that the sun is moving in a figure of 8.
Yeah, I like that.
See, so for all we know, the sun is doing this. I mean, there are so many different ways of conceptualizing it, and like the flat Earth model works as well as a round Earth model does. But I think there's more to it than either of those. I think there's much more to it. I think like it's a bigger discussion about like when we come to supernatural conversation. Like it's really fundamental to like, is matter an expression of consciousness? And if so, then for example, if you're looking at an electron, this is what scientists have discovered. The electron will change its behavior when it's being watched. So they're starting to understand that like matter is intelligent. And like when you're looking at light, like the double slit experiment.
So they say. I'm not sure about this either. I think they're stretching things here with the double slit stuff, because they're telling you how it's like it's a whole thing with electrons. We don't
Double
have to get into it now.
bullshit. I'm with you.
Yeah. It's not
absolutely, but
it doesn't mean that consciousness cannot affect reality. I totally think that's the case. I mean, we see it every day. You make enough people believe something, reality changes, things manifest. But the thing with electrons, that's a different story. I think that was nonsense created for some sort of new age garbage. I have
am I a sucker? I kind of like the double slit experiment.
I mean, I liked it too. Trust me, I liked it a lot, and it was a bummer.
Oh,
but the more I look at it, the more I'm like, damn it.
To me, the double split experiment proves that quantum entanglement is real, and it proves that there's ether.
So like and this is the thing. I'm not saying I'm right either. I think the guy I learned a lot of this from was watching, what is his name? The bald guy, Ken, Theory Apophasis. And his stuff's all based on like Tesla and Heaviside and the field theorists. So if light is actually a ether perturbation, that's what causes this not to be. There's no like little particles of electrons that they're actually all connected always. These are like units of measurement that they're using to break down basically the smallest measurable amount of light. So all of this stuff is always connected. It just depends how it's being created within the ether. And this kind of makes sense if you think of the speed of sound and the speed of light and the effects that they have, because the resistance from the ether or the environment, like you'll get certain effects that only happen at certain variable speeds depending on the pressure and the temperature, and you'll see them, you'll hear them.